Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as we discuss something that could break Manchester United this summer. Absolutely concerning. We'll delve into that. Also, interesting things around Carrick and Amorim again that I think we just need to move on from, but actually probably creates quite a good point. Criticism from the Chris Wheeler interview this afternoon talking about how Amorim was hard work and Carrick isn't. I would look at Man United and say the person who's moaning is probably the person you should be listening to. No manager should be at Man United not being hard work for Wilcox, but we'll talk about that. Also, the latest on Harry Maguire, is it time to let him go? And a few bits around Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Somebody's increased their shares at United. Is that the lead up to a takeover? We'll talk about that. And also, Cole Palmer likes Man United. So lots to get into on the show tonight. We're a little bit early because I'm doing Arsenal Wolves on That's Football. But we're going to start off. Actually, it did come out of the interview Beth and Chris Wheeler did this afternoon, which I really did enjoy. And what was interesting was how Chris Wheeler was talking about how there are two separate transfer budgets for Manchester United, which I'll read out in a moment. But effectively, if we get Champions League football, it gives us a big cash boost to compete with the big boys because we've got more money and we're in the Champions League, which is more attractive. If we don't get into the Champions League, then financially, we're in big problems because it's the second year not being in there and there's not a lot of money for Manchester United. So that's part one. Part two is, if we don't get Champions League football, I think Bruno's definitely gone. Even if we do get Champions League football, I think Bruno might go. So that would break Manchester United. And the reason I put the league table there is that I actually am confident that we will get Champions League football. But if we don't, and we lose Bruno, we're on the edge. And we're not on the edge of glory. We're on the edge of a cliff. If Bruno goes and we don't get Champions League football, I think there is a... And look, doom merchants, half glass empty people would say, I think that's going to happen. I don't. But I will acknowledge, if we don't get Champions League football and Bruno Fernandes goes, what happens next season? I mean, that could be that could be the worst position we've been in since whenever. So it is big. And also when you look at that league table, let's not forget, I'm confident we're going to get Champions League football, but we're only 3 points ahead of Liverpool. We're only 1 point ahead of Chelsea. And if both of those move past us because we slip, then we're not in the Champions League. And then Bruno goes. So that, I think, would break Manchester United. And the reason I think it would break us is because even if we get Europa League football, the financials don't work. You play on a Wednesday or a Tuesday night, you've got Bayern Munich at Old Trafford. It's very different on income to playing on a Thursday night against Karabag, who actually are in the Champions League, so that's probably offensive to them. So I think that, and Bruno would obviously go. Why would he hang around for another project on a Thursday night with another manager? Why would he stay at 31? Why would he stay? So I think it would break Man United, and I think that has to sharpen the minds of every player over the next 3 months, because we have got a great opportunity. We're not playing in Europe. Liverpool and Chelsea are. We have got some good fixtures. We have got a gap on Liverpool, but we have to take advantage of it because it's not just about what you can spend in the summer. I actually think it's being on the edge of the precipice, wrong word, on the edge of the cliff. And if we fall off, how do you come back next season with a reduced transfer budget and no Bruno Fernandes? It's very, very difficult. So look, that's what could break Manchester United. Personally, I think we will get Champions League football, which will boost our transfer budget. And also, hopefully, Bruno will stay. He might go, he might not. But it was interesting what Chris Wheeler said about the budget. He said United's budget this summer will be night and day, depending on whether they qualify for the Champions League. They'll effectively be working with two different budgets, two different shopping lists, and two completely different plans. If United secure Champions League football and £100 million plus, that would be transformative. It would put them back at the top table in terms of the tip players they can attract and the salaries they could offer. Without a top four finish, could United afford to pay Elliot Anderson's wage demands? I'm not so sure. And I think that's very interesting as well, because we don't know what these players are going to ask for in relation to wages. And I don't want Manchester United to be throwing up a reduced wage budget no matter what happens. Mike JW says, if we don't get Champions League and Bruno goes, we are past the edge of the cliff and won't attract more sponsors. Let's hope and pray. Well, the sponsors conversation is probably something very different, but success on the pitch or failure on the pitch does hit sponsorship without what Sir Jim Ratcliffe's done. So I think that, yet again, join us in the battle of Manchester United, where we've been in this position so many times. Literally last season, there was talk of a different transfer budget, a different transfer list. And we certainly saw that, didn't we? I thought we came out of that window quite good because we had Cunha and Mbeumo who wanted to come. And Sesko, as a fifth choice centre-back, actually wasn't a bad choice. But how many summers are you going to get away with that? And how much money is left? I think Man United spent a lot of money last summer in the hope that that would get them back into the Champions League. If it doesn't, do you have to start going, we can't do that again? So, yeah, it is interesting. And I think that, look, the reduced budget, it's logical. It's completely logical. You can't just survive on 40 games when 55 games brings you tens of millions of pounds in match day revenue. It brings you £100 million of... I mean, look, there's a big, massive hole in our budget because we're not in Europe at all. Europe, even the Conference League would bring £20 million in match day revenue and competition, probably bring you more in that, actually. So it's a huge amount of money, and we just have to make sure that we take advantage of this situation. Now, West Ham last week was a drop stitch. We can't do that next week against Everton. And the interesting thing about the Everton game on Monday, of course, is that if Chelsea win their game at home to Burnley, which I think they will on Saturday, we'll go down to 5th. If Liverpool then win at Forest on Sunday, I think our goal difference might be slightly better than theirs, so we're okay, but they'll be level on points with us. There'll be a little bit of pressure going into that Everton game, who themselves are only actually 8 points behind us. So I don't like Monday night football at the best of times. I certainly don't like it this week because it's a long wait, and it also puts a little bit of pressure on us on Monday because we're away from home as well. So look, we've got to capitalise. We've got 3 games in just over 10 days. Yeah? No, 9 days. We've got Everton on Monday, Palace at home on the Sunday, and then Newcastle away on the Wednesday. I would like to say we'll come out of that with 7 points, and that should put us in a good position. But we've got to take advantage of this, because if people aren't alive to it, there is a scenario where the summer is catastrophic for Manchester United. The flip side is what I believe is that I think the summer could be quite prosperous for Manchester United. I think that the Champions League gives us more money, more attraction. Bruno, I think, is up in the air anyway. It's just what we do with that. It's even with the money, it's what we do with it. It's like, I saw what was said about Harry Maguire, and it was basically saying that both parties are interested in Harry Maguire staying, and he is keen to remain at the club. The decision will depend primarily on his salary and how much might be reduced, as well as the length of the contract given his age. Maguire has already received offers from other clubs, including AC Milan. If an offer elsewhere proves significantly better than Man United's, he may have no choice but to move. Look, I'm not running another poll. It was basically 50-50 whether we should keep Harry or not. I like Harry Maguire. There hasn't always been times as a player at Manchester United that I have liked him. I do like him, but I'm sort of... I'm wary of what Man United's ambitions are. Like, are we looking to buy a few players and maintain a core? Are we looking for a rebuild? The champions... There's almost an irony or a contradiction to the story this summer. And I think it's a big issue, because on the one hand, you don't get Champions League football, Bruno leaves, the club's in big, big trouble. You do get Champions League football, you only buy 4 players, Bruno stays, Maguire stays, Shaw stays, you give the job to Carrick. Is that the answer? I mean, for me, if we get Champions League football, that should be the green light to have the clear out, bring in the volume of players, and get the best manager you can. With this ownership, even the positive story of Champions League football may not then materialise into the summer it needs to be. They might go, we got away with that, Champions League football, let's pocket a little bit of that, let's buy 4 players, let's use Harry, Luke and Bruno and everyone else for another year or 2, and let's give the job to Carrick while we're at it. So even with Champions League football, the decision-making is still really important. Obviously, if you don't get Champions League football and Bruno goes, how do you operate? You probably do need to keep the Maguires and the Shaws, because you need to keep players that are here that are cheap rather than signing new players. But even if we do get Champions League football, they still might go, let's keep Shaw, let's keep Dalot, let's keep Maguire, let's not spend too much money, let's focus on what we've got and the core. I think we need the build. I think we need the rebuild. I really, really do. I think we need a manager with a vision. I think we need a board that is ruthless. And I think that it's going to be very interesting. That's my concern. I obviously understand that some people in this community think that Champions League football is not a foregone conclusion. Of course it's not a foregone conclusion, but I think it will happen. My concern is I think we will get Champions League football, but I don't think we'll take the opportunity. I think we'll buy 3 or 4 players, keep the core of what we've got, maybe give it to Carrick, and then in a year or two, we're back where we are now. I think that we've had so many near misses. So many times we've nearly fell off the cliff to a point where it's very difficult to come back. I wonder how many opportunities we're going to skip. I think this summer with Champions League football is the opportunity to do something that really sets us on the right track, get the right manager in, bring 6 to 8 players in, and really, really go for it. But I don't know whether they will. And it's interesting because that feeds into... I don't really like this conversation, as you know. I don't really like the whole Amorim was evil and Carrick's, the hero. I think it's way more multi-layered than that. It's like people saying, "Oh, we're." It's like when Nicky Butt said that game that we won, we would have lost 3-0 with a month ago. We haven't lost 3-0 since Brentford, which was in October. We were already in the top 3 for goals created, XG, and everything like that when Amorim was here. We just couldn't hold on to leads, literally, which cost him his job. But this sort of stuff sort of fits in with what I was saying there about this summer, to me, can't be strategic. Even if we get Champions League, it's got to be monumentous. It's got to be huge change. And when he was saying that, I just want to get the words right on this because I saw this and I thought I don't normally jump in on the Amorim Carrick thing. And I don't think Carrick wants to jump in on it either. But Chris Wheeler was saying to Beth this afternoon, everything felt like it was hard work under Amorim, but Carrick has come in and been the complete opposite. He's calm and composed, keeps words to a minimum, and really shows what the United way looks like. He's applying what he learned from Sir Alex, Jose Mourinho, and other managers in a logical way. Under Amorim, everything seemed like a long way off and still a work in progress. Carrick has come in, put round pegs in round holes, and got the players performing comfortably in roles they actually understand. I think this is one of the most dangerous things the club can do. And if Michael Carrick gets the job, it can't be this. He can't do this. He can't just come in and go, I'm going to play the players where they want to play in a 4-3-3 and counter-attack and use the same players that have sacked multiple managers. I was listening to Chris when he was saying this, and I was like, I hope this is not opinion, and I hope it's not coming out of the club, because this is complete and utter horseshit. This doesn't even serve the Amorim Carrick argument. I mean, for me, you've just completely proved that Amorim was on the right track and Carrick is an interim. Because if the club are putting it out there again to slag Amorim off and boost Carrick's appeal, I actually side with Amorim on that, because Michael Carrick's come in and he's the complete opposite of Amorim. Amorim was talking about the vision being a long way off and a work in progress. Hello, you never even bought him a midfielder. I mean, is anybody sat here going, "Oh, we're going to win the league with Carrick"? No, it's a long way off. If Michael Carrick gets this job, he needs to be a little bit more like Amorim and say, "I need this, this, and this, and this," and nothing's going to happen until it happens. So to say, I hope this is not coming from the club. If the club are putting it out there that, we're so impressed with Carrick, he's put round pegs in round holes. He doesn't demand things. He's really calm. He's just copying Sir Alex, and everything's going really, really well. Whereas Amorim kept saying, "I need more. It's a long way off. It's going to take time. I need more." I mean, hello. If Pep Guardiola walks into Manchester United tomorrow and gets the job, is he going to sit there and go, "I don't need anything. Put your checkbook away. I don't need anything. We'll win the league next year. Don't know what anyone's worried about"? Any manager worth their salt has to come into that football club, and it was what I was saying a few minutes ago, and go, "I need 350 million quid spending this summer as a start, and then we need to do it next summer and in January. I need 8 to 12 players in the next 18 months. I need to build the first team out, and I need a bench. The status quo ain't going to work." So you can propaganda your PR as much as you like about, Carrick's come in and simplified everything and shown that it's an easy job. You're telling me you think this United side is going anywhere near the Champions League or the Premier League title in its current state? It is a long project. Hello, you've not even bought a fucking midfielder. We're using Ten Hag's midfield from 2 years ago. So there's a hell of a lot of work that needs to be done. And that doesn't mean it can't be Michael Carrick, by the way. But Michael Carrick has come in as an interim and gone, my job's till the end of May. I've got no signings. Let's get on with what we've got. Of course he's going to simplify it. He's got no budget. He's got no window. He has to work with what he's got. But if he gets the job and Wilcox and co think, oh, he'll just keep working with what he's got, you're having a fucking laugh. He needs a hell of a lot of support like any manager does. So I call that out. I think if the club are putting that stuff out still, this propaganda that, oh, Amorim was failing because he wanted too much and actually look what Carrick's done with what he's got. Let's get real. Amorim was struggling over Christmas and the New Year because he didn't have Mbeumo and Ahmad and Mazraoui. And Bruno was injured. You take Bruno, Ahmad and Mbeumo out of this team for a month, you see how Carrick gets on. He'll be fucked. So there's a lot of mitigating circumstances, and the reality is that team, regardless of whether it's Carrick or Enrique or whoever, needs a lot of money and needs a lot of players next season. Otherwise, you'll be back where you were in January, next January, with everybody coming for your jobs again in relation to the board. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting as well. Emily Derry says, Carrick may have learned from some great coaches, but many of these players were there under the likes of Mourinho and Ollie. Some were even Carrick's teammates, and they failed playing a 4-2-3-1. Look, in relation... What I was saying there wasn't actually anti-Carrick. It was more about the board trying to make out, wow, Amorim kept saying we were a long way off and there's a lot of work to do, whereas Carrick's come in and look at what he's doing. Yeah, that's what an interim does. Hello. With regards to Carrick, I almost feel like it needs to come with a disclaimer. Not till May will I give you my opinion on it. If we lose our next two games, if we lose two of the next three against Everton, Newcastle and Palace, I will still say that doesn't mean Carrick can't get the job. I think it's just let's see where we are. My biggest concern is that we get Champions League football. I don't think Champions League football and Michael Carrick getting the job should be exclusive. I don't think if he gets Champions League football, he should get the job. And if he doesn't, he shouldn't. He might show everything we need, but miss out on Champions League football. He might show a lot of what we don't need, but get Champions League football. So I don't think the Champions League football thing should be anything to do with Carrick getting the job. It's far deeper than that. I mean, Louis van Gaal missed out on Champions League football, but on goal difference, and won an FA Cup, and we still sacked him for Mourinho. And that was the right thing to do. We can't go backwards and go, well, he only missed out on Champions League football by goal difference and he won the FA Cup, so let's keep him. Fuck off, Mourinho. That was the right thing to do at that time. You look back on it now and go, we sacked a man who won the FA Cup and missed out on Champions League football on goal difference. But it was the right thing to do. It was ambitious. Liverpool has been looking like their old self lately, playing good football. I think they are nailed on for third. We must keep on pushing, says Marlowe. I still think Villa are vulnerable. I mean, they might not look vulnerable to Liverpool 8 points behind, but I still think Villa could be our passport to Champions League football, because I think Liverpool and Chelsea, you don't want to be competing against them. As you say, I don't agree that Liverpool are back, but Liverpool and Chelsea have got better squads than us and a better team than us, although Liverpool do have quite a bit of injuries at the moment. But I still think with Thursday night football and a squad that's not that big, Villa could be the club that we pull in, considering we've got Villa at Old Trafford in mid-March. I think that game, if we can get that gap down to 2 points, I think we'll get them. And I think that's where we need to be looking. They can't just stop blaming Amorim, can they, who recruited him? It's on the inept director of football in Jim Prattface. I just found it amazing when I was listening, and I was like, well, if this is coming from the club and they're criticising a manager because he said that it was a long job and a work in progress, do they look at this team and go, it doesn't need much? I mean, as I said, I'll keep saying this, that midfield is Ten Hag's midfield. Ryerson's assist in the Champions League yesterday was amazing, says Rajaf. I didn't see it, but I think it'd be a great asset. Laura Baxter, hope you're doing well, says it's rinse, repeat cycle with this board. Thank you very much, Laura. Champions League football, we need to buy a pool players and manager with Champions League experience, sell the players with the higher end wages, says Azam. And Jacob says, do you think Bruno is doing a disservice as captain by letting his team and fans know if he's staying? I'm undecided on this. I hope he stays though. I think this is a great point. I mean, what are your thoughts on? I can't poll it. I don't know how to poll it. There must be a way of polling this. Is Bruno? okay, I'll do it in this way. I think it's always easier to poll it because more people can vote. Is Bruno wrong to wait on deciding his future? And what I mean there is the World Cup. Is Bruno wrong to wait on deciding his future after the World Cup? Because you could make an argument that when the season's over, he should make his decision then, because it helps the club out. We pay him a lot of money, and the World Cup's got nothing to do with domestic football. Like, is he wrong to wait until the middle of July? Should he not have the courtesy to do it in June? Because I have seen a few people saying this, like Jacob. A few United fans have said Bruno's wrong. We pay him 300 grand a week. He's the captain of the club, and waiting till over halfway through the transfer window to tell us his future basically fucks our season if he decides to go. Harry Kane did the same, didn't he? But it was very different because he had only had a year to go, and he secured £80 million for Spurs. I'll be honest. I can get it. I can see a player that if they did this, I'd be losing my shit. Like if this was a player I'm not so sure about, Luke Shaw. There you go, Luke Shaw. If Luke Shaw was doing this, I'd be going, you picked England over Man United and now you're doing this. Absolute joke. So look, it depends on money in the bank. And I don't mean wages. It depends on what you've done for the club. Bruno Fernandes has never, in my opinion, shirked away from a game. He's never not put Man United first. He always wants to play. He always gives 100%. So I don't actually have an issue with him waiting until after the World Cup. My issue is with Wilcox and Barada and Sir Jim Radcliffe, that they're so weak that they can't manipulate a situation where they get a heads up before the World Cup. I mean, if I was the CEO or the director of football, I'd be sitting down with Bruno and going, well, all right, you want to wait till after the World Cup, but what are you waiting for? Like, there's surely an indication. Like, if we're in the Champions League, why are you waiting till after the World Cup? Are you waiting to see if Real Madrid or Bayern Munich come in? In which case, I understand. Have you had any? And then you go off and work and try and find out if they're going to do it. But you can't. I don't have a problem with Bruno waiting till after the World Cup. But I have a problem with being in the dark about it. I have a problem with not having any indication. Like, I would have a problem with Bruno saying, I'm not speaking to you until I come back from the World Cup. I'd say, hold on a minute, I pay you bloody wages and I'll be paying your wages while you're in the World Cup. Surely you know whether you want to go or not. If you're going to Saudi, I ain't got a bloody chance, have I? If you're waiting on Real Madrid, they might not come in for you, so I've got a chance. So I would be trying to find out what he's thinking. And if he said to me, I genuinely haven't thought about it and I'm not going to think about it till after the World Cup, I'd say, fuck off, Bruno, come on. As if you haven't got a bloody clue what you want to do. Come on, let's get real here. So I think it just depends on that. However, I also think from Bruno Fernandes's point of view, you look at the way that the club has been run. He's had more projects than a bloody kitchen installer. He's got a manager that he liked in Amorim, been sacked again. Another project gone. He's not stupid. He watches a lot of football. He's one of the few footballers that actually, consumes football away from playing football. Therefore, he will be aware of lots and lots of things. And I think he probably looks at Man United like we have for the last 20 minutes and goes, even if they get Champions League football, if they don't go big and they just go conservative, we will be back here in 18 months and I'll have missed the boat. So I think from Bruno's point of view, I get it. If I was Bruno, the best way to do is put your shoes in Bruno's shoes. If I was Bruno, I would be, the reason I'd be waiting until after the World Cup would be multiple. One, I'd want to see who United are going to appoint as the manager and what signings they're going to make. And by the middle of July, you'd have a bloody good idea because United won't be doing loads of business in the last 6 weeks. We're too slow. So I'd want to know who's coming in and who the manager is. I'd also want to know who's interested in me because Saudi is a given and he's already rejected that once. So if Bayern Munich came in, I'd look at Harry Kane and go, I'll have a bit of that. If Real Madrid came in, I'd go, I'll have a bit of that. If PSG came in, I might think I might have a bit of that. But if it's none of those three clubs and it's only Saudi and Man United have had a good summer transfer window and you like the manager, I'll stay. So you can see why Bruno wants to wait because he It's his last move as well. I still think he's got 3 years at the top left. That's a move. Wherever it is, Bayern, PSG, Real Madrid, that's a move. Saudi's money, there's a move there, or they stick at United and hope the project works. I can see why. But Man United need to understand why, and they can control that situation. Like, they can find out if Bayern and Real Madrid and PSG are interested. They can find out very quickly. They can also provide Bruno with the manager and the transfers to make him happier to stay at United. So I think United can have a big part in it. But I don't blame Bruno for it. I blame the club. Ultimately, I think he's in danger as going down as one of the Premier League's best players who got nowhere near the trophies he deserved. It's not just about the budget, it's about moving on the deadwood and doing it early so they don't faff about like last summer, says Mike. Yeah, and going back to Maguire, because I didn't finish it off, I personally think that I would dislike Man United to be negotiating a wage and a contract with Harry Maguire. Like, Harry Maguire is going to be 33 in March. He has picked up a lot of injuries in the last 2 years. A lot of injuries in the last 2 years. So I've got somebody who's out of contract, who's 33 in the summer. He's had injuries. He's on 180 grand a week, and he's saying to me, I want 120 grand a week in a 2-year contract. No. You can have a 1-year deal on 90 grand because you're going to be a backup centre-back. So it's 90 grand and it's 1 year. You're 33. If we give him 120 grand and a 2-year contract, we're mugs. We're absolute mugs, and we're not meant to be mugs anymore when it comes to money. So I think with Maguire now, it really is going to come down to the financials and how long the contract is. And look, I completely, again, understand Harry Maguire's point of view. He is playing well. He is on 180 grand a week. And he's 33, and if he can get 2 years on 100 grand a week somewhere, financially, that's good for him. And also, because he's out of contract, he can probably get a signing on fee as well. So financially, I think Maguire needs to keep his cards open, but United need to look after themselves as well. Rajaf says, as a United supporter, I would do anything to keep him because we cannot replace him. But if I was him, I would move to Bayern and win a few Champions Leagues. I think he's talking about Bruno and not Harry. Snoopy 10, I like the name, says, if we don't qualify for Europe, we then would definitely need a clear out, including the board, and restart with an actual plan with a lot of investment. I don't think that investment would be forthcoming, mate. I really don't. Daniel Thompson, if we don't get Champions League football. Daniel Thompson says, hope everyone's doing well. Getting Champions League has become beyond necessary, more essential, especially for the summer and keeping players like Bruno. It's make or break for us. I believe we can get Champions League. Yeah, look, I'm not always glass half full. I'm not always Mr. Brightside. I have to say, I thought we'd get Champions League football with Amorim. I said it on New Year's Eve. I thought we'd get Champions League football with Amorim. I think we'll get it with Carrick. However, I acknowledge that is just a prediction. I think Arsenal will win the league. That is just a prediction. If we don't get Champions League football, Bruno will leave and United could be broken. I don't know what the way back would be from that. I even think with Champions League football, there's a chance we're broken in the next 2 years. But without it, yeah. If we don't get Champions League and Bruno, that was from Mike. Thank you very much. Make sure you smash a like on the video, by the way. Thank you for everybody who's tuning in. I've got a couple of comments. Oh, I need to talk to you about the shares, don't I? So I will do that. Harrison says, I hope Spurs go down, or even if they stay, where they could look at some of their young players like Bergvall, Gray, or Viskovic. I like Bergvall and Viskovic, Harrison. But I think Newcastle and Spurs are clubs that Man United need to be looking at if they don't get into Europe. There will be opportunities there. There was some other club that got mentioned. Leipzig, RB Leipzig this morning. If they don't get Champions League football, they're going to need to sell again. So I think that's certainly an interesting one as well. Maybe the club and Bruno do know, and that's why it's still in the waiting until summer position. They won't want it to destabilise the club, says A-Rad. I think it's a very intelligent comment, and it's not one we normally hear. What if it's already been decided that Bruno's going? I think in Casemiro's case, he's announced it early. You could argue that that was right or wrong. So far, I think it's right. But with Bruno announcing it, I think that becomes a problem. So maybe both club and player know it's the end. And they're just keeping it until the summer on purpose. I just think with Bruno, it's the worst summer to get rid of him. I actually think last summer, I think this is a great point as well. I think this summer is a terrible summer to get rid of Bruno Fernandes. I think last summer was a good summer to get rid of Bruno Fernandes because Amorim was going to play him as a midfielder. We'd hit rock bottom. We weren't going to be in Europe. We needed the money. I'm glad we didn't do it, but I think it was a summer where you could have done it and it wouldn't have been too bad. I think this summer, if we get rid of him, we've got Champions League and Premier League. We need to rebuild the midfield anyway, and Bruno. I think this summer is the worst summer to get rid of him because we already need 3 midfielders. That would be 4, and we've got Champions League and Premier League to navigate. I could see it just being. There's only one team. This is my point. There's only one team I've seen do this well, and to this day it amazes me what Klopp did in his final year. He rebuilt a midfield in 3 months. He went and got McAllister, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai. And he rebuilt a midfielder in 3 months. And I'm like, I've never seen that. It doesn't work. It very rarely works. And if Bruno goes, you've basically got to rebuild your midfield in one summer. I know Mainu's there, but apart from that, that's it. So, Azam says, Fernandes has grown frustrated with the instability at the club and under Sir Jim's ownership and was reportedly hurt when United explored selling him last summer. Mate, I think he's certainly not very happy at Manchester United with the board. And I think that could, I don't know which way Bruno's going to go. I think Champions League football and a successful transfer window might make him stay. Marlo says the World Cup is the largest scouting market, but no one needs to scout Bruno, so he needs to decide before the World Cup for the good of the club. And the board should take, thank you very much, Marlo. And United, Nick, says the board should take control of the situation. Niall says, I broke my hand in a footy game, absolutely gutted. But do you think Morgan Rogers would be a better signing to replace Bruno instead of Cole Palmer? Very different players. Very different. I mean, the thing is, there's no Bruno Fernandes out there. I mean, there is nobody really plays like Bruno. I can't think of a number 10 that plays like Bruno. So you can't replace him. You've just got to replace him with somebody that's good in that role in their own way. I mean, Cole Palmer's very good in that role. Morgan Rogers is good in that role. Would I go for Palmer or Rogers? I think I'd go Cole Palmer. I think I would. But he's going to cost double the money. JB says, why would it be a disservice from Bruno? They tried to get rid of him. Well, 68% of you agree with that. Bruno is not wrong. To wait to decide on his future. Thank you very much. Let's just run a poll on that one as well. Either or, Rogers or Palmer for Manchester United. Where would you go? Rogers. I tell you what, I'm looking forward to this Wolves game later. Emily Derry says, just to clarify, I'm not anti-Carrick. Wouldn't give him the job yet. He should have to re-interview. It's the way we are. May act as though the core of this team is something finished to build on. Emily, I'm not anti-Carrick. I just don't believe with the simpletons who are saying give him the job after 5 games, especially after the last game, just because he's played at the club before. Ollie played at the club before. To me, it's way too early. Way too early. And it depends what the alternatives are. There's 2 things about Carrick. 1, he should have to interview for the job in the summer and no decision should be made before then. And 2, it depends who else is up for the job. Because if it's Southgate or De Zerbi, give it to Carrick. If it's Enrique or Pochettino, there's a conversation to be had, definitely. John says as well, of course, the players are happy. Less training, fewer games, more holidays. But that's not good. We should be playing and competing. It's not good. I think this is a good... I tell you what, there's some fantastic comments tonight. I mean, I'm going to watch this show back later on. There's so many good points that I need notes for. Because I think you're absolutely right, John. I would not, if I was Jason Wilcox or Sir Jim Radcliffe, I would read absolutely nothing into the happiness of these players. Nothing. They were happy under Ollie and they sacked him. And I'm sure the players are absolutely bloody loving it. I mean, Harry Maguire was on a walk the other day on Instagram. Heaven and Yoro in Dubai. Bruno's been in Portugal. They're part-time footballers. They're working part-time. If I said to you, take Thursday and Friday off every week, you'd be overjoyed. But I'll pay you the same. So Marlowe, Andre, Harrison, this isn't real, by the way. Whatever job you've got, I've just reduced it by 50%. I'm not reducing your wages. You've just got an extra 2 days off a week. They're playing part-time football. Of course they're bloody happy. This is what I mean about next season. It almost doesn't need Carrick, because Carrick's going to go from the guy that was giving him half a week off to the guy that's going, it's going to go from happy hardly doing anything to double the work. And that's going to be hard for everybody to adjust to, isn't it? It's a great point. Great point. Rajaf says, what's your thoughts on Romano's Rashford tweet? Goes to Romano's feed and has a look. Newcastle beat Carrier Bag 6-1. Barcelona want to keep Rashford beyond this season, planning to negotiate and reduce the 30 million buy option. Man United insist it's fixed and must receive it in full. I mean, look, I think as long as Marcus Rashford goes to Barcelona, everybody's happy, aren't they? Andre Gomez says, off topic, but we absolutely need a left-back. Dorgu's best games have come from wing, not as left-back, and Luke Shaw is one injury away from leaving us vulnerable there. I also don't think he's good enough. We do need a left-back, absolutely. The shares, very quickly, yes, because we're approaching 8 o'clock here. Yeah, so the shares thing's quite interesting. Basically, American billionaire Leon Cooperman has increased his stake in Manchester United. The 82-year-old bought around 900,000 shares in the autumn of 2023 when Sir Jim was planning his takeover. He now has more than 2.9 million shares in the club, the equivalent of 5.2% of the club's Class A shared, value at over 50 million. The Class A shares aren't voting shares for a start, and I don't know who this guy is. It's quite insignificant when you consider that Sir Jim is a minority shareholder at 28%. 5% isn't even a fifth of that, is it? So, look, I don't think there's anything in that. I don't think it's going to lead to a hostile takeover. And even if it does, who is Leon Cooperman? You know, it's another American billionaire. Does he actually care about football, or does he care about money like the Glazers? So I think that the only time I'd start to get excited about shares is when somebody that actually cares about the club, wants to clear the debt and take us back to the top, starts buying shares. Until then, I'm not too interested in it. There was something else I wanted to talk to you about this evening, and I don't want to miss it. How much do you think United will have to spend now? I can't do that. Oh, it was just about Ollie. Actually, this is why I always think that I think fan opinion is really important to Manchester United. I think they pretend it isn't, but this was really interesting. The media backlash against Solskjaer hurt his chances for the Man United job. There were lots of talk calling it a backward step, saying he'd already had his chance and it hadn't worked and the club shouldn't go back. That reaction may have swayed the club's thinking away from him. Forget media backlash. I don't think they're listening to bloody Andy Prattstein on Talk Sport. I think they're listening to you. I don't think they're listening to, Micah Richards or Chris Sutton. I think they're listening to you. I don't think they give a shit about unassociated media. I think they care about the fans. And there was a lot of people that turned on the Solskjaer appointment in January very, very quickly and said it was embarrassing. And I think the club saw that. And I'm glad they did listen on that, because I do think Solskjaer would have done a very similar job to Carrick, in the sense that I think we would have won a lot of games and I think we'd hear Ollie's at the wheel. And I'm grateful that that's not the case. Even if Carrick gets the job, at least it's a different story. But I'm glad they listened on that, because I think they did. I think Solskjaer was going to get the job. I think that's exactly where they were going to go. And I think that the noise from the fan base probably changed that. So I think that's a positive. I do. I think it is. What about Cole Palmer news? Oh, one of his mates has posted about him joining Man United. But the great thing is, like, you could get like Declan Rice could come out and say I love Man United, but getting him out of Arsenal ain't that easy. So whether Cole Palmer loves Man United or not, it's getting him out of Chelsea, isn't it? And that's why I don't really care about whether Cole Palmer supports Man United or not, getting them out of that club is very, very expensive. If Bruno Fernandes leaves, that's where I would go. And 63% of you agree with me on that. But that's a big, big if. And I don't know where that money would come from. But imagine that. Bruno Fernandes leaves and Cole Palmer comes in. I wouldn't be unopposed to that. I wouldn't be unopposed to that at all. I just don't know how you'd financially do it. And if you're asking me, would I swap Bruno for Cole Palmer in the summer? No. Firm no. But if Bruno decides to leave, would I bring Cole Palmer in? Yes. But I don't know how we'd do it. I don't know how we'd find the money to do it. Fantastic show tonight. I've absolutely loved it. Please do smash a like because we've only got 600 likes and there's 6,000 watching. So please do smash a like on the video. We're going to be live on That's Football in 5 minutes for Arsenal against Wolves. Also, make sure you've subscribed to the channel because I've got a cracking video going up tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Really interesting on one of our current players that everybody's glowing up, but there's a hidden issue. Check it out. Stay safe. I'll speak to you on That's Football in a minute.